9 years ago, I was fighting on the battlefields of Iraq when I was hit in an ambush almost 8 times. Found myself medevac back to the United States and facing the grueling journey of being put back together. Took almost 4 years and almost 40 surgeries to go through that process before finally I reached the end of my military career and found myself as a civilian. Faced with the new prospect of how do I assimilate back into this new world after almost a 20-year military career. My story is not unique. There are thousands of wounded warriors that are out there like me, who suddenly, in the blink of an eye, are wounded by enemy gunfire, an IED, some sort of attack that occurs that leaves them wounded in the hospital and trying to find their way into the next phase of their life. All of that came together while I was being put back together with the idea that we could recognize his sacrifice, that we could raise awareness about it. And that led to the creation of Wounded Wear. Wounded Wear started out as just clothing and clothing modifications that we could give to our wounded warriors to help them both bring about pride, but also to help them once again have that power, to empower them to get back out and overcome their injuries. Out of the Wounded Wear clothing line, we started doing events such as Jumping for a Purpose, taking wounded warriors and throwing them out of perfectly good airplanes to show them that they could still live greatly and overcome anything. And from that, we continued to grow with our Toast to the Heroes event, bringing wounded warriors in from all across the country to be able to fellowship and learn and share time with both other wounded warriors and families of the fallen. Last year, we grew into the Combat Wounded Coalition, an organization that was committed to helping combat wounded warriors find pride, power, purpose, and peace. Pride through the Wounded Wear clothing line and raising that national awareness. Power through events to get them back out, to show them that they could overcome those injuries. Purpose through jobs, education, and housing. And peace from the invisible wounds of war. The end state of the Combat Wounded Coalition is to help every wounded warrior find that purpose-driven life and peace from the invisible wounds of war. Those of you that are out there who are willing to commit to an organization that is doing great things, that is committed to financial transparency, you don't need to look any further than the Combat Wounded Coalition. We are committed to always supporting our wounded warriors. We are committed to the money following the warrior, the money following the mission. 83 cents of every dollar goes back to that mission. I could sit here and I could tell you all kinds of other details about our programs, about our purpose, about our mission, about our employees, about our volunteers, who all have that connection back to the military. But probably the best thing I can do is talk to you about 3 stories that link back to those who we have helped. The first story is about a combat wounded warrior from the Vietnam War. One of the great things about the Combat Wounded Coalition is we serve all conflicts. Our only connection is it must link back to those combat operations. We had a wounded Marine. He came to us. We sent him one of our Wounded Wear clothing kits. We didn't think much of it. He was another amazing wounded warrior that we were just looking to serve. But about 6 weeks after that kit had gone out, we received a letter. And he wrote to us and he said, I can't tell you how much these articles of clothing have meant to me. He said, for the last 30 years since I served in Vietnam, he said, I felt like I never was able to truly come home. When I came home, I didn't even want to wear my uniform. I heard people talking about baby killers, people spitting on fellow soldiers and warriors that I had served with, and I was almost ashamed of my service. He said for the first time, our clothing enabled him to feel like he had been welcomed home, and he felt complete. And we've seen countless episodes of our Vietnam warriors who have felt the same way, because we took the time to recognize them for a travesty in American history when the American people didn't recognize those who willingly went out and fought for freedom and sacrificed so much for it. Second story He's about a young wounded warrior, double leg amputee, lost both legs in an IED explosion in Afghanistan. We were up at Bethesda Naval Hospital visiting. His mother came up to us and said, "Since my son's been wounded, he's been a shell of who he used to be. Nothing seems to motivate him. Nothing seems to excite him." And we were up there giving out wounded wear clothing kits, and we were also talking about our upcoming Jumping for a Purpose. His mother told us that for the first time when we were talking about Jumping for a Purpose, that there was a light that came on in his eyes. And he looked at her and he said, "I'd like to do that." About 8 weeks later, he came down to Virginia Beach and he joined us for Jumping for a Purpose. And I watched him as he went out the back of that plane. By the time he hit the ground, he had this huge smile on his face, and I knew we had cracked that code. I knew that he recognized in that moment that his life wasn't over. I knew that he had bought into the idea that he could continue to live greatly and he could overcome the grievous injuries he had sustained. About 8 months later, his mom called us and she said, "I can't thank you enough for what you did, for empowering him, for releasing that hero within." And she said that he now was getting his education. He was driving forward. He had goals he had set for his future. He even had a girlfriend. She said that jump changed his life. Last story I want to tell you about is a wounded warrior who stepped on an IED in Afghanistan. Above the knee amputee, mangled his arm, married with 3 kids. Came back home to the Hampton Roads area and was struggling to find a house. We started searching, we started looking for organizations that could support him. And just last year, through a series of connections and working hard, we managed to get the support of the Gary Sinise Foundation to fund him a house for him and his family. These are the things we're doing to change lives, to ensure that our combat wounded warriors have the ability and the opportunity to achieve the American dream. We don't tell them that they're entitled to it, which is an overused word in American society because it's not an entitlement. They earned it through sacrifice. So I hope today those 3 stories will let you know exactly what you're supporting when you support the Combat Wounded Coalition. I hope you will recognize that you are touching those Vietnam veterans, our Korean War veterans, our current veterans, and those who have endured the horrible wounds that we're seeing on the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. Your dollars are going back to support them so they can move forward and achieve their American dream. I'm looking forward to seeing your support, and I want to thank you for what you're doing for us. God bless America, and God bless you for your support. Thank you.